Ah, snakes, everyone's favorite nightmare fuel. Whether you're fascinated by these slithering creatures or so afraid that you'd walk miles to avoid cutting through tall grass, we've got a lineup of snakes that will give you the chills. From a snake that can leap out of trees and fly straight at you to one that can blind you before you even get within 6 feet, here are the 20 scariest snakes you won't believe actually exist. Number 20. Spitting Cobra. Oh, lovely. Just what we've all been waiting for. A spitting cobra. And it does exactly what it says on the tin. Being a snake and all, these things aren't just lobbing spit either. That's actually venom they're flinging into your eyeballs. Spitting cobras have evolved to defend themselves by shooting out jets of venom at the eyes of any would-be attacker. This venom has been specially adapted over the course of the snake's evolution to cause pain. Unlike the usual bite and injection style of administering venom, this is a unique self-defense move that spitting cobras can use before they even need to get close enough to bite you. And by the way, they will do that as well. They're able to sling their venom with remarkable accuracy from as far away as 6.5 feet from the victim. This ability often means that the snake is able to defend itself from any threat and scarper without ever needing to engage further with the would-be attacker. As for anyone coming too close to one of these things, well, I'd say that the searing pain that accompanies the blinding effects of that venomous spit is going to leave you pretty much out of action now, isn't it? Number 19. Atheris hispida. Ah yes, a hairy snake, just what everybody needed to see. Our nightmares will be so much more full and rich now. The Atheris hispida is extremely catchy as a name for a snake, but it's also commonly known as the spiny bush viper, the rough-scaled bush viper, or the hairy bush viper, which is the name I think I'll use here. So, these hairy bush vipers are not technically hairy but rather covered in very long dorsal scales. This is what gives the snake that unique fuzzy appearance. And while they may be bad dream enhancers, they're unlikely to trouble you unless you happen to reside in a very specific part of Central and East Africa, namely in a couple of isolated populations in Uganda and one in Kenya. But if you do happen upon a hairy bush snake, and what an exciting thing that must be, you may find one basking on the tops of flowers during the day because they're mainly nocturnal hunters. They're especially fond of munching on frogs, lizards, mammals, and the occasional bird. It's not often that they come into contact with humans, which is quite lucky, as their venomous bite is neurotoxic and may lead to hemorrhaging or even destruction of your internal organs. It can ultimately be deadly to a human if the correct antivenom is not administered in a timely manner. And that can prove a bit tricky when you're in the furthest reaches of isolated forests in the depths of Uganda. We're having such fun with all of this today, aren't we? Number 18. SpiderTailed Horned Viper. Now this is a weird-looking snake. Apart from the knobbly appearance of its mottled white and beige skin, it's also in possession of a pair of so-called horns. Additionally, it has a bizarre adaptation at the end of its tail that looks like, well, you guessed it, a spider. The spider-tailed horned viper is native to Iran. It's especially well adapted to that particular landscape, where its coloring helps the reptile to camouflage perfectly against the limestone and gypsum rocks. The thing that makes these snakes most formidable hunters is that weird spider thing at the end of their tails. This is their uniquely deadly lure. They use it to attract birds that think they've spotted a tasty spider, when in actuality it's just a sneaky snake doing some high-level wiggling and subterfuge combinations. By the time the bird realizes the trap, well, it's already too late. Interestingly, this trick doesn't work on the local Iranian bird life. They've obviously figured it out by now. But all the migratory birds are not so savvy and will fall prey to the spider-tailed horned viper with predictable regularity. Number 17. Black Mamba. Just the name of the black mamba is enough to strike fear in the hearts of many people, and not only those with a snake phobia either. The black mamba's deadly bite is the stuff of legend. These large snakes, which can reach up to 14 feet in length, are mainly found in sub-Saharan Africa. The mythology around the black mamba is probably mostly due to the fact that until relatively recently, there was no antivenom available. So, it used to be that if you got bitten by this snake, then unfortunately that was the end of you. Sadly, that's still the situation in many isolated parts of Africa, where access to medical care is too far away for antivenom to be administered quickly enough to save a person who's been bitten. Despite stories of black mambas chasing people and biting them, these snakes mostly just try to avoid contact with humans. It's only the result of the expansion of human environments into the snake's territory that causes more frequent contact. If the snake feels threatened in any way, it is really aggressive. Combine that with its extraordinary speed and fast-working neurotoxic venomous bite, and you've got a potent death dealer. Number 16. Gabon Viper. Here's one of the heaviest and largest of all the vipers. These big, weird-looking reptiles may well give you nightmares. They actually have some fairly terrifying credentials and a penchant for some particularly unpleasant habits. The Gabon viper is native to Western Africa and can be found in the savannas and subtropical forests of the Ivory Coast, Sierra Leone, Ghana, Liberia, and Togo. So, These are actually some really scary snakes. They have really long fangs, the longest of any venomous snake out there, measuring about 2 inches in length or even more. Those fangs are so long that they actually fold away when they're not in use. The snake can fold its fangs up into the roof of its mouth for easy storage. That's quite an adaptation. As well as the venomous biting and super long fangs, these vipers also have a distinct shape. Their heads are kind of wide and triangular, and they have large scales on their noses that give them the appearance of horns. If their scary looks aren't enough to have you cowering behind the couch, then a little insight into their hunting habits might do it. The Gabon Viper strikes with extreme speed, biting its victim and injecting venom with staggering efficiency. It then simply holds on to its prey until it dies. Once it's dead, the snake will consume it whole and head first. Now, I know they aren't exactly going to eat you, a giant person, but if they bite you, well, you're going to die. Sorry about that. Does that make you feel scared yet? Now it's time for today's topic. Alright, buckle up folks. Deep in the wilds of the Amazon rainforest, a group of researchers stumbled upon a snake so massive, it made the usual anacondas look like garden hoses. But hey, you're probably thinking, big snake? Same OL story. Nope. Think again. This beast isn't just larger than life. It's packing something unexpected. A human-killing toxin. Yep, you heard that right. Normally, anacondas play by the rules. They squeeze their prey, no venom needed. But this snake is breaking all the rules. Researchers found traces of venom in its system, and let's just say, it's no mild snakebite. Combine that with its colossal size, and you've got yourself a real-life monster straight out of nightmares. One of the scientists joked, if this thing evolves, we're gonna need more than boots and bug spray to survive the jungle. Imagine a snake that's not only squeezing you but injecting venom while it's at it. Double trouble, am I right? Are we looking at the next stage in evolution here? A venomous anaconda? Or did this one just get a little too creative with its meal plan? Either way, next time you're in the Amazon, keep one eye on the trees and the other on the ground, because this ain't your average jungle story. Number 15. Death Adder. You know that when the word death is included in the name of something, it doesn't bode well for a super friendly animal that you want to snuggle up with. The death adder, such a villainous name, is a super venomous nocturnal snake that dwells in Australia and Papua New Guinea. It's only surprising to me that more of the deadly snakes on our list have not been residents of Australia. It seems that you can barely take a walk to the shop in that country without tripping over a deadly creature of some kind or another, and here is one such animal. Death adders are apparently among the most deadly of all snakes on the planet. These snakes are masters of ambush, often burying themselves in leaf litter and using their tail as a lure to attract unsuspecting prey. Their strike is one of the fastest in the snake world, delivering venom in a fraction of a second. This venom contains a powerful neurotoxin that works by blocking communication between nerves and muscles, leading to paralysis. Even their name, adder, is somewhat misleading, as they're not true adders but belong to their own unique genus. Until 1958, a bite from one of these reptiles was a death sentence. Even now, unless the antivenom is administered with great speed, the bite victim can expect neurotoxic results, which include paralysis, and then, within 6 hours of the bite, death. Oh, what a fun one. Number 14. Flying Snake. Oh, excellent. As if we didn't have enough to worry about with all the snakes on the ground, now they're going to begin flying through the air as well. Well, no, actually, the name flying snake is a tad misleading. These snakes don't technically fly. They don't have the mechanisms to actually get off the ground and start flapping around, thank goodness for that. But what they can do is kind of glide, and sometimes that has a similar appearance or effect to flying. The flying snake is a slender tree-dwelling reptile that can be found in South Asia and Indonesia. These kooky snakes have a special adaptation that allows them to suck in their underbelly scales in such a manner as to make their underneath concave. This then allows them to glide through the air for around 300 feet. They're able to increase their potential gliding distance by performing a wiggly, undulating movement. Flying snakes are unique among limbless animals, as they're the only ones known to have this gliding ability. If the idea of a snake with the capability of flying is unnerving, then fear not. Unless you're a rodent, a bat, a bird, or even a lizard, these weird creatures actually pose no threat to you. Number 13. Tiger Kilback Snake. This is a nasty sort of snake with a whole range of unsavory habits and behaviors that may just give you nightmares if you're that way inclined. It's optional though, so if you do prefer falling dreams or that one where all your teeth fall out, then don't feel like you have to add the snakes in as well. You evidently have plenty to keep your sleep scary already. The Tiger Kilback Snake is not exactly the catchiest of names. It's a mega venomous and super poisonous snake from Japan. These charmers get all their toxic juices from their preferred diet of delicious toxic toads. Granted, watching one of these snakes getting stuck into a massive toad is not exactly the most fun you could have on the internet, but it is kind of interesting nonetheless. As they snaffle down all of that tasty toad, they store up all the toxic sauce in a special gland within their necks. In fact, these snakes will display this area in order to ward off any would-be predators. If they do go so far as to bite the snake in this area, the attacker will be sprayed with a whole lot of nasty toxic mess right in the face. That is going to sting a little bit. Number 12. Saharan Horned Viper. Known as either the Saharan Horned Viper or sometimes the Desert Horned Viper, these snakes are found across the deserts of the northern parts of the African continent and the Middle East. And this one, well, it's one absolutely nasty reptile. The Saharan Horned Viper has a unique appearance, what with its horns and everything, but it's also quite venomous in such a way that it'll make anything that falls victim to their bite, well, very, very dead indeed. Interestingly, those distinctive horns over its eyes aren't just for show. They're thought to help the snake blend into the sandy desert environment by breaking up its silhouette. Their sideways slithering motion, known as sidewinding, is perfectly adapted to help them move efficiently across loose, shifting sands. As ambush predators, they bury themselves almost entirely in the sand, leaving only their horns and eyes exposed, waiting patiently for unsuspecting prey to wander by. Their venom, while dangerous, also plays a role in immobilizing their prey quickly, minimizing the struggle. Humans who accidentally encounter a Saharan horned viper and receive a bite can expect a whole range of fun symptoms, which include but are not limited to hemorrhages, necrosis, nausea, vomiting, and cardiotoxicity. While it is true that a single bite might not have quite enough venom to finish you off, do you really want to split hairs about it? Number 11. Calibar Burrowing Python. Well, it happens that the Calibar burrowing snake is the proud owner of the very thickest and toughest skin of any snake species. Get the reptile a trophy, won't you? The reason that scientists believe the snake has evolved to have such a sturdy epidermis is all because of their fantastic diet. And no, not because they eat a lot of skin-strengthening vitamins or anything that's so wholesome. The Calibar burrowing python's favorite food is actually baby rodents. It turns out that if you keep trying to eat babies, their mothers are often not especially happy about it, and they will bite you. Interestingly, their thick skin isn't just about deflecting bites. It also acts as excellent protection against the rough, abrasive environment of underground burrows. These snakes are uniquely adapted for life below the surface, with their smooth scales allowing them to move through tight spaces without injury. Their compact, stubby tails also mimic their heads, confusing predators and giving them an edge in tight situations. They use their strong, muscular bodies to push through soil, showcasing just how much of a specialist the species is when it comes to subterranean living. Despite their ruthless reputation, they play a key role in controlling rodent populations, which can benefit farmers and ecosystems. These snakes, while they're absolutely ruthless, do all that burrowing under the ground, as their name would suggest, in order to raid the burrows of rodents and eat every baby in sight. Eesh, this is not actually a fun one. I'm glad they have all that thick skin. Otherwise, getting called a baby eater all day long might just be a little upsetting. Number 10. Two-headed snake. When two environmental scientists named Dave found an incredibly rare two-headed snake in the forest of New Jersey, the most obvious thing to do was to name the unusual animal Double Dave. Oh, and then they had a look at the snake to try and understand how this had happened. It turns out that Double Dave was a newborn timber rattlesnake, which is a venomous pit viper. The snake had two fully formed heads, which is very unusual. Often, when snakes are born with two heads, one of their heads is usually smaller and not able to be complete. But Double Dave's heads, well, they were fully equipped with both eyes, a mouth, and a tongue in each. Weird. The condition, known as polycephaly, is similar to what happens when conjoined twins are formed. The embryo begins to split like when twins develop, but then it stops before it's completely divided. It is really difficult for snakes with this condition to survive in the wild. They become easy prey for all kinds of predators as they're quite slow-moving, perhaps because they can't decide which way to go. Anyways, all joking aside, these snakes are also known to fight each other. Seriously, the two heads will behave as if they're actually separate and in competition with each other for food. It's even been known that one head will kill the other in an effort to win the fight. Number 9. Hognose Snake. These snakes do appear to have a funny little turned-up snout of a nose. For some, that shape is more apparent than others, but it's not a source of danger. Rather, it's used for digging in the dirt. But that unusual snout is not the only thing that this handsome chap has going for them. They come in a variety of snazzy patterns and colors. The eastern hognose snake is also known as the spreading adder, and that's because this is another snake that flattens its neck when it feels threatened. But these guys are not really biters, well, not to anything other than their prey, that is, you, as a massive human, don't really have much to fear from the old hognose snake. Yes, they are mildly venomous, but their rear fangs are not used for biting in defense. In fact, their venom is amphibian-specific, so they use it to catch and eat their favorite toady snacks. The very few humans who have ever encountered a bite may be allergic to the snake's saliva, but there are no deaths recorded anywhere as a result of a bite from a hognose snake. That's certainly a relief. Number 8. Eastern Indigo Snake. Next, we have a really rather unscary snake. The Eastern Indigo Snake is also known as the Gulf Coast Indigo Snake, the Indigo Snake, or the Racer. Frankly, they don't pose any threat to humans whatsoever. And to be fair, this snake is really a beautiful color as well. Yes, that's right, our very first scary snake is a pussycat. In fact, the Eastern Indigo Snake is so unlikely to bite, even if it is crossed, that it has a range of other behaviors it will most probably go through first. One of their most fascinating traits is their role as ecosystem regulators, as they prey on a variety of species, including venomous snakes like rattlesnakes, effectively controlling populations. Their glossy, dark blue-black scales shimmer in sunlight, often earning them admiration from nature enthusiasts. Despite their intimidating size, they can grow up to 8 feet long. They are considered gentle giants of the snake world. These snakes are also non-venomous and kill their prey by overpowering rather than constricting them, showcasing their strength without the danger. They are an important part of their habitat, contributing to the balance of the ecosystem by keeping rodent populations in check. They do a thing where they kind of flatten their necks and then hiss super loud. Then, they'll waggle the tip of their tail about really fast, making a sort of buzzing sound in the leaf litter or grass around them. Finally, they'll make a stink out of their back ends. That's really a rather blunt warning, but even if you don't get the message from all that neck flattening, maybe the stink will do. So, there you go, a snake which has a whole bunch of stuff to warn you off if you get too close. But they're actually extremely shy and will avoid any contact with humans unless it's absolutely impossible not to. Number 7. Long-nosed whip snake. These are some really unusual looking snakes. They are perhaps most famous for having some funny facial expressions, which is really on account of their pointy faces rather than anything deeper going on here. Found throughout India, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam, the long-nosed whip snake lives in forests, grasslands, and occasionally in parks and gardens. These snakes are able to camouflage really effectively into their environment. They mainly eat frogs, lizards, and small rodents. Although it might seem as though they would be speedy, these snakes are proper slow coaches and really take their sweet time to do anything at all. It's lucky that they blend in so well or they would never catch anything at all. The long-nosed whip snake is a bright green, extremely slender, and long snake. This in and of itself gives the reptile a unique appearance. But they also have that long nose, which gives them pointed faces with an apparent strong brow line. They pose no actual threat to humans at all. Their venom is super weak and will actually only take effect if the snake chews on something for a very long period of time. So unless you're going to let one of these reptiles nibble on your ankle for hours on end, the worst that a bite from a long-nosed whip snake can achieve is just a little localized itching. Number 6. Elephant trunk snake. Let's take a moment here and try to just guess how this snake got its name. I wonder what it could be. It's a mystery. I simply just can't fathom at all why it would be called the elephant trunk snake. Despite the complete enigma surrounding the naming of the elephant trunk snake, we can tell you at least a little bit about its habits and whatnot if you like that sort of thing. These snakes are non-venomous aquatic reptiles mainly found in coastal areas in Asia and Australia. They have really baggy, wrinkly skin and an appearance that's akin to an elephant's trunk. Well, duh. Considering the fact that these elephant trunk snakes can be found in Australia, the place where almost every living creature is up to no good and harbors all sorts of death-dealing secret weapons, this big reptile is surprisingly unmenacing. In fact, these snakes are really rather shy and retiring. No wonder, when you discover that they're hunted mercilessly for their skin and their meat. They'll mostly hide from humans, let alone become aggressive towards them. So far, so unscary. They'll spend most of their lives minding their own business underwater, staying submerged for up to 40 minutes at a time, and then heading back beneath the surface before anyone actually notices them. Nothing to see here, nothing at all. Number 5. African egg-eating snake. These egg-eating snakes are native to sub-Saharan Africa, but they can also be found in some parts of the Middle East as well. They are evidently big fans of the egg. In fact, their diet is exclusively egg-based. These snakes are fabulously equipped for climbing, needing to be for all the egg snatching that they have to do. They are able to scale rocks and climb trees, all in order to carry out raids on birds' nests. Interestingly, their jaw structure is incredibly flexible, allowing them to open their mouths wide enough to accommodate eggs much larger than their heads. They have no teeth, which might sound like a disadvantage, but it's actually a clever adaptation for their unique diet. The absence of teeth ensures that the eggs remain intact as they're swallowed. To further assist in the digestion process, their bodies have specialized vertebrae lined with spines that gently crack the eggshells without breaking them externally. Once the African egg-eating snake has performed its maneuvers, it will then get a hold of the egg and swallow it whole, as snakes are famous for doing. Of course, they have a special mechanism within their esophagus that punctures the shell, allowing the contents of the egg to continue down into the snake's stomach, while the shell is regurgitated back out in one piece. Ugh, Gross, but also pretty clever indeed. Number 4. King Cobra. These scary snakes may have a particularly bad reputation, but it turns out that they really do prefer to escape and avoid any contact with humans rather than stick around to bite anybody. So that's kind of good news, I suppose. Native to India, China, Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines, the king cobra has one of the most famous of all snake shapes. They're known for their upright stylings, where they'll fan out their necks in order to get really hissed off about things. But that's really how they get when they're cornered in self-defense mode, or if something is perceived to be a threat to their eggs. The statistics involving the king cobra actually back this up. These snakes are responsible for 5 deaths per year, whereas something like the North American rattlesnake is the cause of 5 times as many deaths. But if you do happen to get bitten by a king cobra, you can expect such delightful symptoms as pain, followed by paralysis, which will eventually stop you from being able to breathe. Then, the other gross toxic stuff that they inject into you will begin digesting your paralyzed body while you're still just about alive. Luckily for humans, these snakes mostly prefer to eat other cold-blooded animals, especially other snakes. Number 3. Sunda Island Pit Viper. Would you just look at this absolutely beautiful snake? Just look, though you definitely don't want to touch it. The Sunda Island Pit Viper is a staggeringly bright blue color and looks nothing like any of the other snakes we've seen so far. But just because it's pretty doesn't really mean that it's friendly. In fact, these pit vipers have a nasty habit of engaging in fights rather than flight when they encounter people. They're ambush predators, often found coiled up in trees, waiting patiently for unsuspecting prey to pass by. Their striking coloration not only makes them visually stunning but also serves as a warning to potential predators. Interestingly, the venom of the Sunda Island pit viper contains hemotoxins, which can cause serious tissue damage and disrupt blood clotting. While fatalities from bites are rare, medical treatment is crucial to prevent long-term complications. These snakes are known to be highly territorial, which is one of the reasons they're more likely to stand their ground than retreat. That bite's going to cause all those lovely, painful symptoms we've heard about before: pain, swelling, necrosis, severe internal bleeding. It's just so amazing. So it's probably best to avoid these blue beauties as much as you possibly can, which is not all that easy as it sounds if you happen to be on certain Indonesian islands. These snakes are seen all over Komodo and have even been frequenting the streets of popular tourist destinations like Bali. Number 2. The Rhinoceros Viper. The Rhinoceros Viper is another snake with a long list of aliases. It's also known as the Rhinoceros Horned Viper, the Butterfly Viper, the River Jack, and the Horned Puff Adder. But whatever you may call it, these vipers are one of the most venomous snakes on the whole planet. The main name of the snake is given on account of the way that its scales grow on its head. They're so knobbly and unusual that they seem to form a kind of horn on the front of the reptile's face. These snakes are known for their horns, their murderous abilities, and also for their extremely beautiful skin patterns. Native to the African tropical forest, the Rhinoceros Viper grows to be around 28 to 42 inches long, weighing about 22 pounds. But their size makes no difference to how deadly they can be. These snakes are just as stuffed full of venom when they're little babies as when they grow up. Just a tiny drop of their juice can kill you. The venom of the Rhinoceros Viper will attack the circulatory system of anything that's unfortunate enough to be bitten by one. This causes massive destruction of the body's tissue and blood vessels, resulting in internal bleeding. Oh, and one such case of the snake doing its worst occurred when a man in Dayton, Ohio, was keeping one of these vipers as a pet. My goodness, people, please don't do this. That should be obvious, really. The snake bit him and made him completely and utterly dead, as to be expected. Perhaps you should just get a nice, friendly guinea pig for a pet instead. Oh, I love you, Twinkle. Number 1. Tentacled Snake. Another weird-looking snake, but this time it has a pair of tentacles poking out of the front of its face. How gorgeous. But apparently, nobody actually has any idea what they're used for. These tentacled snakes are found in Southeast Asia, where they spend their whole lives lurking about in the water. These aquatic animals are especially fond of living in rice paddies and lakes, but may also be found in streams and occasionally in seawater. Tentacled snakes are basically just rubbish at moving on dry land, so they avoid coming out of the water very much at all. At night, they'll often bury themselves in mud. They do have a unique hunting style, which seems to be relatively effective. They'll just anchor themselves by the tail and then hold their body in a sort of upside-down J shape. This is how they lie and wait for potential dinners to swim by. When a fish gets into range, the tentacled snake will waggle a part of its body to disturb the water, causing the fish to make a sudden bending movement to escape. But it's this movement that the snake uses to capture its prey. It actually catches the fish in the place that the snake predicts it will escape towards. Ooh, sneaky stuff. And there you have it. Hopefully, this collection of nightmare-inducing reptiles sparked your imagination and sent a few chills down your spine. What did you think of these scaly creatures? Have they given you a newfound fear of snakes? As always, Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to check out the other cool videos on the screen, and I'll see you next time.